Well, it's been a quiet week here in Lake Skabegon, my hometown. This week, the Squids talk with Derek Webb about his new album, Survival Songs, which is written for the benefit and support of the queer and trans youth. They discuss the concept of recording the music, why he paints his nails, the sound of a rubber bridge and nylon strings, vinyl, Rich Mullins, Cornerstone, and more.
Well, we got 30 minutes, right? So we gotta
Yeah,
burn.
yeah, 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 yeah. But we're cool if we go over a little bit.
Okay, sounds
All
good,
right.
right? Because I know I also have I have vinyl questions for you, but that's not related to this podcast. So
I'm into it. Let's do it. Let's do it all.
sounds good. Cool deal. Well, is there anything that you need from us before we jump in?
Nothing.
Sweet.
Nah, man. I'm just
Yeah.
I'm just here for the hang.
Awesome.
I'm
All
I'm
right.
looking forward to it.
Well, that's perfect.
Yeah. Welcome to a special edition of Pickle Home Companion, lunch noon style, right? Or I guess it's not. You guys are all on Eastern time, so this is like afternoon tea or whatever.
Yeah, tea time for
Um,
sure.
That's
Yep.
right. Yeah, that's what you do, I think, every day around this time.
Yes.
We're pleased to welcome Derek Webb. I've been following Derek Webb for a long time. I think all of us have been aware of him on various points of his career. But we're happy to bring you into this virtual space to welcome you onto our ridiculous shows. Thank you for making time, Derek.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
I think because we're connected to our overlords, I feel like it's probably important for us to start with a mention of Five Iron Frenzy's Fahrenheit, which Reese Roper has always been. He's been clear that he doesn't agree with everything about his previous lyricism, all of his like songwriting, etc. But
Mm.
he was at that time even figuring out, even if he can't sign off on every part of the lyrics of that song today, he's been clear about how it's really important to love people, take care of people, and let that be the most important thing as we deal with people, as opposed to our differences. So I feel like that's probably the strongest connection to Derek's new record. Which Derek, can you give us your nutshell description of what your new record is?
Yeah, yeah, of course. Thanks. So the new record is called Survival Songs, and it is a record I hadn't anticipated making, and it was one of those records you kind of hate that you needed to make because I've always thought of my job description or any creative person's job description is like to look at the world and describe it. Look at the world, tell us what you see, if you like. And increasingly over the last couple of years have just had a really hard time knowing how to talk about the world that I was observing and just what to even say about it. It has just felt like it's like that moment that the serpentine belt in your car breaks and every gauge goes on and everything goes wrong at one time. And it's like it has just felt like everywhere I look, everything is on fire, is how it has
Mhm.
felt to me in my community here in Nashville. And so you don't even know where to start because when there's that kind of emergency, you want to run towards what's happening and you want to help. But when it's everything, you don't even know where to start. You don't even know which direction to run in. And so it can be really defeating and really paralyzing. And I think that a lot of people have probably been feeling that. I certainly was coming into 2025 and had really wanted to write. I'd really wanted to contribute. I'd really wanted to work. And I'm not unfamiliar with protest music. I've written a lot of it in my career. So, but I didn't even know where to start. I didn't even know, even with that. And so what I eventually realized was that for me and for everybody, and this will be personal and it'll be different for everybody, but for everybody, as you're looking at a landscape like that, there's going to be one tallest fire that you can't get around, you can't see around, and that you have to deal with. For you, that's where you have to go run first to get that tall fire down so that you can get even think about or deal with anything else. And for me, that tallest fire was absolutely the increasingly just impossible world that queer folks and trans folks are having to live in and navigate right now in 2025. It's just it's I and I know this because I mean I'm a straight cisgender man, but I'm uh, a friend to and a family member to folks in these communities, and I in my firsthand experience walking with them, I have seen it, and it's become increasingly alarming to me, especially queer youth and trans youth. It's like just really are really in danger, at high risk for their lives. And So once I realized that that's where I could focus and that's where I could contribute and that's what I needed to do and what I could offer, I went from like no ideas, no album, no idea when I'll make another album, to suddenly I started the month of February of 2025 again with nothing. And as soon as I put the tiniest bit of energy into trying to write songs that could be soundtrack, empowering, encouraging soundtrack for queer folks, as soon as I had that idea, I wrote the entire album in 2 or 3 weeks, and
You
I
said it just kind of
recorded it.
fell out, right? Just showed up.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I recorded it in 2 or 3 days. I mean, so like literally I started February with no ideas. I ended February with a finished recorded album. I mean, it's the fastest 3 weeks all in. I mean, to from no idea to recorded. And it literally came in and just changed all my plans. I mean, I had other plans. I had a record turning when you've done this job as long as I have, I mean, I'm short, so I look young, but I've been in this line of work for a long time, like 30 plus years if you include my Caedmon's years. And so it's like, I had a record that was turning 20 this year. That was an important record to me. That was going to my focus coming into the year for touring and everything else. We canceled all those plans as soon as as soon as it was burning, and I was like, okay, I know this is like going to happen fast, and this is the energy we need to follow. Like I called my management, and I was like, we need to change all our plans. Like we're following this. This is what we're doing. So quick as we could get it out, quick as I can get on the road. So I'm already a month into the tour.
Saw you in Portland. Great show.
Yeah,
Got it
thank you.
for the
Thanks for being
remaining
there.
dates. Got to say that everybody should go. It's worth it. Absolutely.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just a big surprise, and that's how it kind of arrived.
Yeah. Do you think every album should show up that way? Like, would it be easier if it just like happened?
It certainly would be easier. I mean, I have learned to not be stressed about my creative process anymore because I've gone through it so many times now with records and stuff. But like every time I finish a record, and literally every time, I feel like, okay, that's it. Like I gave it everything I had, and I think I'm done. And in a real sense, I am, because the way I approach records, like each one is its own whole career for me. It's its own whole thing. I mean, thematically and everything else. It's like that. It tends to be really all consuming for me. So it's like, and I give it everything I had, and until a whole other thing shows up, I have nothing. And I'm not a prolific writer. I'm not always, I will write 10 or 12 songs once every 18 months or 2 years. I record every one of them, and then I will not write a thing for another 2 years. And so like and so it would be much easier if the records just showed up and then I didn't have to like stress for a super long time about it. But um I'm very used to it. I'm used to going like 12 straight months and not writing one thing down, not having one
Wow.
musical idea. And I just learned to trust it now, so I don't stress about it. But it's if I think about it for 5 seconds, it's stressful. I'm like,
Yeah.
I need songs,
True.
like I need to push forward. So yeah, I'm always grateful when the records show up. So
Excellent. I think because this is a podcast, there's a bunch of cis straight white males on. There's five of us on this call, so that's I think par for the course for podcasting, good, bad, or otherwise. But
right.
I think the most important thing to me about your new record would be for all of us being who we are. The song "Nail Polish" really sticks out to me, and the story that you told at the
Hmm.
Portland show, you're probably telling it at most of your shows, is that this is a song about what it takes to be an ally, what it takes to show up first, and what it takes to show up and
Mm.
protect the people that you love. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for highlighting it. Yeah, it's the second song on the record, and it's a question that I have tended to get over the years, and I just thought, well, this will just be the perfect place to address it. Is like as a 50 something, straight cisgender guy, like why is it that I tend to keep my nails polished? And first of all, yes, I want to stay in touch with my punk rock roots, which I'm sure all of
You're a
you will
scene
understand.
kid. Yeah.
Understand.
Exactly, that's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that aside, I have found it to be an incredibly helpful early warning system. Like you get a tremendous amount of information when you walk into a space with your nails polished. And if you don't believe me, then all of your listeners should just try this. But
Mhm.
especially when I'm out in public with my queer family and friends, when I walk into a space and people see, it's something as stupid and simple, easy as nail and meaningless, really, ultimately, as having your nails painted. Any of the kind of judgmental or side eye. It all comes at me. And so it gives me this great opportunity to basically scan a room and get a quick sense of what we're dealing with and get a quick sense of who potentially could be unsafe people in a space.
Mm.
And who I might need to watch out for in a space, if I'm with folks, family and friends, and so it helps me do a better job of keeping my people safe for sure. It also, on the other side, helps identify you to other people in a space as a potentially safe person for them.
Right.
If something was to go down, they get a quick sense of somebody they could run to, they could depend on. And so it's like, and that might sound a little alarmist to some people who maybe don't live in that world or don't have queer, trans friends, family that they spend regular time with out in public and things like that. But it is not a safe place right now for queer and trans people. It's not safe. I literally think about it every time I go out. That song, literally, like the first few lines of that song is like, going out's like a war zone. I mean, and it really can feel like that. So yeah. So for a handful of
Right.
reasons, yeah, I keep them painted.
We appreciate that.
No, I saw you tell that story, explain it on Instagram, I believe. You did a post
Oh
talking
yeah,
about
yeah.
that. And that's where, so I haven't had a chance to see. You were in my neck of the woods last week when I was out of town, actually,
Oh
on
yeah.
that
Okay.
corner tour. But it made me think immediately. So the church my family goes to now, when we first went there, one thing, and it was a connection to me, is the pastor's son, who was like 8 years old, I think at the time, had his nails painted, and I was like, oh, I think we're gonna be okay. And this is just straight. I mean, straight cis man, and
Yeah.
heterosexual family, but it was like, oh, okay, like I think this is gonna be a place that we can be a part of, in a community we can
Yeah.
be a part of, that's going to align. And it was, I hadn't thought of it through the way you explained it, but it immediately sparked that
Mm.
memory in my mind of like, oh, if his son
Wow.
is fine and he's fine and everyone in church is fine with an 8-year-old boy with nail polish, I think we'll be comfortable in this environment.
Right.
But to,
Yeah, it does. It communicates a lot to me.
So I'm curious too, to follow a little bit on where Brock was going with that. Since we are middle-aged, straight, cis, white men, what do you
Yeah.
hope because we can't really speak to anyone else's experience directly, first person. What do you hope we're hearing and receiving from this album? I can see where, if we were not who we are, a
Yeah.
clear message. But for us, what
Yep.
do you hope we hear, and what do you hope we do with it? And people like us, I guess.
Yeah. 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 Well, so what's fascinating as I just observe, I mean, I've done this for a long time, and I think somebody told me a couple of weeks ago that I had maybe 12 records I'd put out over my 25 years of solo. Somebody else told me it was like maybe 18. I honestly don't know, but I've put out a handful. And what's interesting about Survival Songs is it's the first of my records that for whom I'm not the primary demographic and audience.
Hmm.
And it's like it only took me 25 years to decenter myself. So, I guess that's a start. But to not be the most important person in the world. But the thing about it is, like, I feel like anybody who it is not just, I mean, one of the first things that I did when I decided I wanted to try to make this record, because it's not my inherently my space, and therefore I don't lead in that space. I follow my friends, and I support them, and they lead me, and I take their guidance, and their counsel. And so, like, the first thing I did was I fired like texts out, to a dozen or 2 dozen friends, queer folks and artists, and to basically kind of say, this is what I want to try to do. Do you think is this okay? Like, do you think this is a good idea? And also, though, as I asked them, like, if I only have a short amount of time with people who I want, whose lives may be hanging in the balance, and I want to make sure that I really make the best possible use of every single minute, every single word. Like, could you take a second and think about, if you had 1 minute that you could sit across from your teenage adolescent self, and you could grab that kid by the shoulders, look them in the face, and ask them, like, what would you say to them that you think could be meaningful or helpful to help keep them alive in 2025? What would you say? And I got so much unbelievable feedback, from all my friends, and with their blessing, so much of that language wound up weaved into the lyrics of all these songs. Um, and so, but the point I'm making is that for me, as an ally, as a straight ally, I am also, though, telling my stories too, and I'm telling them from my perspective, and I'm telling them, like from standing next to folks and being in situations with friends and family, and so even, when I was first thinking about how to talk about this record, I mean, it definitely is for queer and trans folks, and especially
Hmm.
queer and trans youth and adolescent folks. But it's also for family, and it's also for allies, and it's also for friends, and it's also. But like even as I've thought about it, like e- even if you're a parent who's concerned about your kid, even if you're a family member or a friend concerned about, somebody in your life, or just wanting to help and support, and you have felt those feelings, there's a lot of that emotion wrapped up in this record. And I think that, like, if you just listen through it, I think it's like with a lot of things. I mean, I have my intentions, but I think if somebody just comes to it and just puts it on as a record, I did the best job I could with it. I tried to make it interesting to listen to, the way I produced it and mixed it. I think the songs probably have some kind of emotional resonance to them, and I think that people would probably feel that. So it is kind of like a concern I have. Like, I don't want people to come to it and be like, "Oh, I heard this is like a thing for like queer folks, and it's for like, if I don't." And if somebody says, "Well, I don't have any, queer friends or trans friends," I mean, I would kind of maybe start there. Like, why don't you have any queer or trans friends? And do you
Hmm.
understand that you're probably surrounded by queer people in your life, either in your work or in your family or somewhere? And why is it that they maybe don't feel safe to, why have they not identified themselves to you, or what, what? That's a great place to start.
That's the
But if
thing.
you,
Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
but if you do, then I think you're going to find resonance here. But at the end of the day, like, you always hope that you've made something that is good and stands on its own and doesn't need explanation and doesn't, and even though you have intention with it, you hope somebody could just enjoy it and put it on and just receive it as a piece of art, as a record. And I hope that that is true of this work. And but at the same time, it's not my primary concern, because, as I
Hmm.
said, like, for me, this is an emergency. There's an urgency for me to getting this language and these songs into the ears of folks who I think might desperately need it, and to be part of that energy. So, but I hope, just like you said, I mean, like, we have a lot of commonality between the five of us, and um, I hope there's something for anybody who would spend the time with the record. I hope, um,
Hmm.
that's what you
Yeah.
always hope, but you also have your intention, and
Sure.
yeah,
And musically, I got to say, it's everything you've come to expect from a Derek Webb record. I feel like
Hmm.
it's got,
yeah,
the thing.
yeah,
It's got some of your signature sounds. It's got some of your
Hmm.
signature phrasing and whatnot. It's as
Yeah.
good a Derek Webb record as any other record you've ever made.
Oh, I
Um,
really appreciate that.
it is
Super
interesting. I
appreciate
think
it.
I want to say it was the Albany show when you came to Oregon last summer. I think maybe you just started introducing your rubber bridge on the guitar,
Oh
started
yeah,
working with that because that's a new tone, that's a new sound. I feel like
yeah,
when I saw you last time in Portland a couple weeks ago, you were doing the new stuff with the rubber bridge, and you pulled the rubber
yeah,
bridge and just played traditional sounding guitar for your
yeah.
older songs. So you want to talk about the instrument a little bit, or
I
the
would love to,
modification?
actually.
Because
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's relatively new. I feel like maybe it's like the new hip thing.
Well, I guess that's what I'm figuring out. Like, what's interesting is, like, I have always, and you can ask anybody, like, I have always loved super dead sounding acoustic guitars. Like,
Yeah.
I would be happy to never ever change the strings on any of my guitars ever again. And some of
And I
my
saw
favorite
you.
guitars, yeah.
Sorry, in 2018, I think you played a house show I was at, and that was where I think you were playing your old nylon string guitar, and so it's
Yeah,
got some of that
exactly.
as well, right? Just kind of like
That's what I was gonna
let's
say. Is
really
like,
beat the hell out of this thing and make
yeah,
it do
yeah.
what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, I've tried to find my way to instruments that have just a really dead and dark and mellow sound, and I just increasingly love that. And maybe it's a reaction because of all my years in Caedmon's, where, like, we played these really big, bright Martin acoustic guitars, and like we would have like new strings put on them every single night for every single show, and it was just like and it's just that kind of very bright percussive. The only thing that's getting out of the PA is like the pick hitting the strings. You're not hearing anything.
And this
And I
tone has
think,
nothing for me, but this tone has
yeah,
everything, right?
yeah. Hey, there you go. Okay, that's a deep cut. Thank you for that. But like, I, but over years, it's like that's been. I think I'm just so I'm so tired of that. sound for me that I have increasingly, like, I don't play, it's been probably not quite almost 10 years since I don't play with guitar picks anymore. I mean, on the whole, I don't I it's all my hands on the strings now, and even if I'm strumming, and I have found ways, like, for instance, maybe about 10 years ago, I started putting flat wound strings on my acoustics. Anything I can do to make them more dead and flat sounding. Like, I don't want there to be any top end, no brightness. And when you it's like you watch all this great footage of, like, Dylan in the early 60s, and like the acoustics he was carting around, and he was like tuning them up and down like crazy, and everybody was passing them around, and the strings, it's like they're so plunky, they're just so dead, just because they were so worn out. That's the sound. And that is what eventually took me over to, like, nylon string instruments, because there's no top end on those instruments, and then putting flat wounds on my acoustics, and then eventually found my way to Rubber Bridge, which really, I can't go any further. There is no further to go from Rubber Bridge. You don't go, like, it's so there. It's so, like, you hit it, and it lasts for a half a second. There's almost no tone anymore. It's like
Mm.
it's way more percussive, but it's dark and it's warm, and I love it. I just love that sound. And so, yeah, I found a company called Orangewood, a really rad California-based guitar company, who makes Rubber Bridge, who makes new Rubber Bridge acoustic guitars, and grabbed one, right as I was starting to record this record, because I knew I wanted that to be part of the sound. And so because I wanted the record to be really intimate, I wanted to be really
Mhm.
quiet. I knew that I always play all the instruments in my records, or I have for like a handful of years now. But on this one, I actually recorded the whole thing I recorded the whole record in about 2.5 days in a friend's Airbnb on the east side of Nashville. And I didn't even record it on a computer. I recorded it on a Tascam
Mhm.
12 track recorder. And so, because I didn't want to be able to edit or tune or fix or correct. You could barely punch in and out on that machine. There's no
Mhm.
screen hardly. It's really, you're just looking at knobs and faders. And so I knew I wanted there to be that vulnerability, that intimacy, authenticity, whatever all that is. I just wanted to be honest, and I wanted it to be immediate, and I wanted to play everything on it. But it's harder when you're not on a computer, because, if you're playing on a keyboard versus a real piano, you can, like, transpose everything into C, and then you sound like a genius. But, like, like, I had to figure out how to play all these instruments. And, like, I wanted drums on the record, but I'm not really a drummer. I can program all day long, but when it comes to actually hitting things, so, like, I got myself, like, a cajon and a couple of really cool tambourines, and just tried to make drum sounds out of stuff. And it
Mm.
was so there was like a real there was a lot and then I mixed it. I've never mixed one of my records before. I typically have I've never felt qualified to do that, but again, I just was in a hurry. I just really wanted it out quick as possible, and so yeah. But I love the sound. I love that dark, dead sound on guitars and stuff. And it just, especially because for at least the last 10 years, I've primarily also played house shows, and I've done house shows through my whole career back to my first solo record, but exclusively in the last 10 years really is the way I tour. That's going to be unconventional spaces, never any amplification, no PA, no lights, no support of any kind. It's just me standing there with a guitar. And it's part of what you learn to do in those spaces when you're projecting over an instrument. It's great when the instrument's quiet, and you can hit it harder and you can make it louder, but it's really hard when you're dealing with, like, a really loud guitar. It's hard, you're kind of having to mix yourself in a room. And so there's something also about, like, a really dull, dark guitar. It's just easy to play with live. It just kind of, for every reason, it just made a lot of sense for me. And so again, I don't think I'm going any further than a Rubber Bridge guitar, because I don't think there is any further to go. I think I've,
Yeah,
like,
just
finally hit
switch instruments.
the
Yeah.
wall. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think the sound, doing that and just kind of making it real simple really helps, you to be able to focus on the lyrics and what you're saying.
Yeah,
And especially even, if it was like a really big overproduced concept album, stuff can kind of get lost, and sometimes,
yes,
the idea gets too big, where the humanity keeps it grounded, makes it
yeah,
real relatable, and, like, you can relate to it, even, like the five of us, where you're like, okay, I get it, like, I feel
yeah,
for, those kids, I feel for
yeah.
who the audience is.
Hmm. Yeah, I really appreciate that. And And again, like that's what I'm glad you heard. That's what I was definitely what I was trying to say. And I don't, I get, you know what, I put a thousand more words on that than probably were necessary. But but that's what you're hoping for. Like I'm because like I'm imagining that kid with those AirPods in, hearing these songs and what that moment is. And even on the cover, it's like I want this to be like a one-to-one, like an intimate
Mhm.
experience of
Hmm.
spending time with these songs and receiving some of this affirmation and receiving some of this language. I wanted it to be intimate, and I wanted it to be quiet, and I wanted it to feel one to one, and I wanted it so it's like I didn't want it to sound like more than I could really do just about by myself, where it really sounded like the two of us are going to spend a little time together, and I'm gonna offer some things. And so yeah, you want that to run through the whole thing, even the way it's produced and how it sounds. You want so that's definitely so it works for a lot of a lot of reasons. And I've tended to produce my records that way. I've tended to like I use every part of
Mhm.
the buffalo. So like whatever I'm hoping to communicate, I want it to be reflected as much in the production and the arrangements as in the lyrics and everything else. So yeah,
There's not a ton of reverb on the record, right? I mean, some of that's
it's
working with the
pretty
12
dry.
track and all that. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that
It's pretty
kind of
dry.
lends to the intimate experience of listening too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's the real temptation on a really sparse project, is to kind of wash it out with a lot of because it's nice. I mean, I love records like that. I love records that have that quality, but on this one, it's like the Tascam does have reverb and some stuff on it, which I was playing with, but like I think I realized that when you do that, again, it just kind of it there's something more compelling to me listening to it as I was kind of mixing, and I did everything on headphones. I mean, I mean, I listened to it in my car a couple of times when I was trying to finish mixes, but like on the whole, even for me, it was a very intimate thing. I didn't sit in a room with big speakers. I was on headphones the whole way through. I recorded it and mixed it and everything on headphones. And I wanted it when you had it right here. I wanted it to sound really intimate and like it was just,
Yeah.
us. And the more you kind of out, it makes the space feel larger, and I didn't want that.
Right.
I wanted the space to feel small. Um, and it just tends to abstract some of the humanity. And another way to say that is it's forgiving. And so some people really want that and maybe even need that. And for this, I was like, nah, I want all of the moments the performances that I felt good about, even though they're like the timing and the pitch, and sometimes it's just kind of all over the place. That's when you can detect humanity in a thing, it tends to make you trust it because you're like, this isn't manipulated, and maybe it's therefore not trying to manipulate me. And so I that was important to me that you heard all of that and that you could hear it on the record.
Particularly on
Yeah.
this record, I think, right? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, I think like
exactly.
yeah, the vulnerability of like
Yeah,
the
that's it.
artist, kind of showing, hey
Yes.
man, you know.
You're right. You're right. Because that's me being vulnerable and saying, like, this is really me. Like, this is me without the ability to fix and tune and correct and quantize. And this is just me really trying to externalize something immediately that I hope could be meaningful to you and helpful to you. And I think you do. I think you do. I think even people whose ears aren't really tuned to that sort of thing, I think that they can. I think you can tell, you can hear the vulnerability in it because you're so used to hearing perfection now.
Right.
When you're
Yeah.
listening to records, you're used to hearing
Mhm.
vocals tuned, and you're used to hearing drums quantized, and you're used to hearing things really edited and really put together. And that's fine. There's no right or wrong way to make art. And so if that's what somebody likes and that's the sound and that fits in the genre, fantastic. For me, I do think leading with offering the vulnerability, I think invites vulnerability, and which is what I hoped for. So yeah.
Yeah. Also, Derek, are you aware of Joe Pug? You know that guy? He's
Oh
got the
my
podcast with the working
God,
song. You haven't
dude.
been on that, have you?
What? Does Joe
To
have
his
a thing?
podcast. He's got a
No, I
podcast
didn't know
about
he had a
the
podcast.
working songwriter. Yeah,
Oh
I'll
my God.
spoil it now. His sign off every time. It just made me think about it because of effects and whatnot. But his sign off is that what an expensive drug habit is not a song, a compelling Instagram account is not a song, and reverb is not a song. So that's what he
Fantastic.
signs off with every time.
Dude,
But
I've been a Joe Pug fan for so long. Like
oh
since
yeah,
since that first EP he put out that I think was like a college project. I mean, before he was even really pursuing music. I mean, it was like there's a whole story that there maybe it's just the lore now, but like there's a whole story that I remember hearing about his first EP he ever put out, and I've been such a fan of his for so long, and I've met him just a couple of times and been very lightly connected. But like, I think he's tremendous. I think he's a tremendous
Yeah.
songwriter.
And he's had
Yeah,
some dalliances in reverb, but I think like he's aiming at the fact that like a lot of folks are going to hide behind that, or a lot of folks are going to
yeah,
like
yeah,
make
yeah,
that the art. And I'm sure there is an art to reverb. You can have plate, you can have spring, you can go underwater, you can
yeah.
do whatever you want. But that's not that's not a song. And yeah, I think
Right.
that
Well, I
probably
think the idea is not to be lazy too, because
right.
like that is one of the reasons that I want that I got my Tascam and I knew I wanted to make this record. And now I feel like I'll maybe never go back because I so enjoy the process of recording this way now. Because it takes me back to the way I recorded when I was in high school, like on a 4 track, 8 track cassette, 4 tracks and stuff. Like that's where I got started and all that early experimentation, and I so loved it. And like it's and I wanted to get back to that, and I wanted to have that immediacy, and so like even when I got it, you know, I didn't, because modern recording tends to make people, and I'll just confess and make it first person. It just has made me really lazy because it's like that whole it's like that old joke. Maybe it's a Nashville joke because there's so many studios and stuff here, but it's like Pro Tools being like the software that most people use to record records in Nashville, or that's like Logic in LA or whatever it is. But like, you record on a computer and then you can fix everything. So it's like the old joke is like, the guy sings the song, and he gets to the end of the take and he's like, all right, how did that sound? And the engineer goes, it sounds like shit. Come on in. It's like
Right.
because it doesn't matter. Like we can tune it, we can fix it, we can make it sound amazing, and don't worry about it. Just and it's like I didn't want to do that on this record. Like I wanted to really get the real thing. I didn't want to, and I wanted to give myself not a lot of time. I mean, I recorded this whole thing in 2.5 days, and so it's like I didn't want to give myself time to way overthink the performances of the vocals and the guitar parts. I wanted it to be honest and decent. I didn't want it to be distractingly bad, but I didn't want to obsess on things that were not the most important things.
Sure.
Like, oh, listen to what a great singer I am or something. I just wanted to get the stuff across as honestly and immediately as I could, and then
Yeah.
just get it out, you know.
I know you've said that no one can out prepare you. So was that kind of a challenge to try and do it so quick?
I love that somewhere you picked up that I've said that, because that, I mean, 'cause that is real. It's really true. I'm like I don't know if any of y'all are into Enneagram. I'm not necessarily, but everybody in Nashville is super obsessed with it. But I'm apparently a
Right.
raging five, which just means I have to be prepared for everything always. Like I
Hmm.
have to have thought of every possible outcome and be prepared for all of it. And so I'm a vigilant researcher. I'm such a researcher and a preparer that it almost makes it where I can't ever do a thing because I
Hmm.
love preparing so much that I don't want to stop preparing, because that's the part of it I love the most. I love the preparation. And so it kind of short circuited that a little bit because I didn't have time to do a ton of preparation. So I was like, okay, this is the year I've got. This is what I'm going to use. And literally the first weekend after I finished the final song, I knew I was done. I knew I had all my songs. I knew the songs were locked. I knew I was the first immediate available weekend that I had free is when I recorded it. And I literally, like, I knew I couldn't do it in our house here, although we do have a studio space here. But I was like, I need to get focused. I need to get away from where the animals, our dog and our cat, and whatever other disruptions and things that happen around here, out of my typical space. And so I texted our great friends who like manage Airbnbs around town. I was like, is there any chance y'all have an open space over this coming weekend? And they were like, yep, we got a space in East Nashville. It's a whole house, nobody's in it. If you want it Friday to Monday, it's all yours. And so I put everything I fit in my car, two, three guitars, a cajon, some tambourines, my Tascam, a bunch of cables and mics in my car, drove to the east side of Nashville, and didn't come back till it was finished.
Wow.
And I just slept and ate and only did that for like 2.5 days. And I don't even hardly remember it now. Like it
Hmm.
happened so fast. I almost don't remember doing it. So yeah, yeah. So it kept me from obsessing and over preparing and all my typical things I would do that
That's
could have
cool.
resulted in this record taking me months to
Right.
make. I
Yeah.
could have taken 6 months to make this record, and instead I did it in 3 days. But
Well, I think it came through. I mean, just you can feel the emotion in the songs, like not
mm,
just the subject matter, but I think it helps to convey the subject matter to show the how important it is right now. So I think that
yeah.
the whole process was all part of it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, thank you for that. Well, and I do, as I said before, I really do think you hear it. Like, When I think of
Yeah,
records that
for
I
sure.
love, most of which were made before we had the ability to perfect to the degree that we do now. I mean, you can still make records that way. It just takes a lot of self control, and it's really hard to do when you're like, I'm going to hear that sour note for the rest of my life. And but like the records that I love, and mostly ones that were made, as I said, well beyond our ability to do it this way. When I listen to them, the thing I love about them is that when you listen to them, because of the imperfection that you hear, and because of the moments where it falls out of time a little bit, or the pitch is a little, or whatever it may be, they sound alive to me.
Hmm.
There's some kind of
Mhm.
weird spark to them where you feel like you're listening to that. So on the other end of your headphones somewhere, these people are in a room doing this right now. Like it's
Yeah.
happening live as you're listening to it every time you listen to it, because it sounds like
Yeah.
any minute there could be another mistake you hadn't noticed before, or the whole thing could fall apart and they have to start over. I mean, there are certain records that I listen to and I'm like, it really sounds like that to me, and it makes me sit on the edge of my seat, and it makes me more actively listen, and it kind of invites me into the risk of how it was made, and makes me feel like a little bit like I'm pulling for them, and it's like, and you hear like someone's voice about to break, and you hear someone there. I don't know, it's like it doesn't come through a lot of modern records. It takes so much self-control nowadays, but like I love records that are like that, and this was the only way I could get myself to make a record like that. If I'd made it on Pro Tools, which I've been making records on for 25 years, 30 years, it just wouldn't have sounded like this. I wouldn't have been able to resist it. I would have cleaned it up a ton. I would have like, I just can't do that when you're making a record on
Mhm.
a 12 track. So I'm glad it happened that way. Yeah.
Cool.
I think I was surprised by song one, Queer Kid. You know what the record's about. You know, you sit down and listen. You're like, all right, let's steel ourselves. Let's get ready for some survival songs. And I think both the feel of that opening track, as well as the protagonist in the song is kind of
Mm.
making a joke. They're talking about things with much more levity than I would expect, and I think I was
Mm.
pleasantly surprised by that. That yes, these are serious topics, but we're talking about people who have been dealing with oppression, with problems, with marginalization,
Right.
with outright hostility in their lives for a long time. And
Yeah.
as with lots of things in life, if it's a constant irritation, constant presence, that stuff turns into jokes, and they're dark jokes maybe, but
Yeah.
people find their ways to grin and smile about it. So I wanted to say thank you for that. I think it's a good intro to the record. It
Yeah.
wasn't
Mm.
what I was expecting when I heard it.
Oh, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's like it's true. Like the whole thing can't be heavy and dark. Like you have to bring your whole self to it, and you have to in as far as you bring your whole self to your lived experience. And so it's like there do wind up being a lot of surprising moments and feelings and emotions that do come through, that even like when you surprise yourself by laughing in the midst of something really like a heavy grief, but you have a moment
Mm.
that just you break and you can't get out of it, and that just becomes part of that moment now, and it comes with you. So I did try, because and I've always kind of really loved tongue-in-cheek writing, and I've loved like, and I try to, and I've had that quality in a lot of writing, or I've always tried to have that, and I was glad to see it came through in some of the songs, because going into it again, I felt like I was trying not to, again, I'm so glad I didn't have very much time, because I'm glad I didn't have time to really overthink and stress about the songs and the way I was writing them, and it just had to happen all really fast. And but I'm glad that that part of my personality even as well showed up in the songs, because also like you're not people aren't going to want to spend time with a record if it brings them down. Like it's going to need to bring some joy and bring some levity and bring some, like, you need all that. So yeah, I'm glad that came through. And I'm glad that the some of the earlier songs on the record invite you in a little bit, because there are some
Hmm.
heavy moments. But I have tried to be conscious of offsetting stuff like that. Like even like probably the heaviest song on the whole record is the fourth song. I was there too. It won't be this way forever.
Yeah,
But
I was
that
just gonna
one,
say that one was, yeah, that one I really liked that one.
oh yeah, thank you for that. Well, it's got a heavy story that it's based on,
It
but the
does,
thing is
yeah.
like it it showed up, to my great surprise, it showed up as like one of the more up-tempo songs
Mhm.
on the whole record. And so like, which I think was really helpful, and it helped to offset the weight of the material. And so yeah, I'm always grateful when that seems to happen.
I'll say with that first song particularly, it sounds like a teenager too.
Mm,
Because like I'm thinking of the line where like I can't remember the exact words, but basically said, "Oh, I
yeah,
guess we're illegal now." That's the
right,
kind of flippant thing a
Right.
teenager
right,
would say to an authority. So to me, that makes it
right.
feel more real too. Obviously, you're
Yeah,
not a teenager, but like it sounds in the voice of a that is how a teenager would kind of deal with authority who doesn't like them, right? Is
yeah.
they're gonna blow them off
Well, and
totally.
the thing is, like, that song was written directly from a conversation I had with somebody in my family about their first day back to school the morning after Trump
Mm.
was reelected, and how did it feel, and what were you and your friends talking about? How did it feel? And that line literally came directly. It was almost just a quote. I mean, where like they got to school and they were looking at each other, and they were like, "Well," I mean, and somebody said it, and it was kind of a joke, but somebody was like, "Well, I guess it's illegal to be us now, so that sucks." And
Yeah.
it was like, and as soon as I heard that, I was like, I mean, that's when I was like kind of storing it up, and I didn't realize I'd be writing about it yet at that time. But yeah, so it got right through.
And we're still here. They're still here. We're all still here together with
Yes.
them. And
Yeah.
uh, whether whether it's illegal or not, that doesn't change
Right.
the fact that we all exist and we're here supporting each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
And that's a huge, big message to start off with. I'm grateful it's there. I'm grateful you put it out into the world. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I super appreciate it.
Was there anything else
Yeah.
that we haven't asked about the record that you'd really like to get out there?
Oh.
Anything that nobody else has asked?
Oh. Well, no, I don't know, probably. But I mean, I'm honestly just so like it's like there's so many things about this job that are just completely out of your control. But like you know, so you make the thing, you externalize the thing, you get the thing out, and then you just hope people find it. And at this point, my whole job is just stewarding it. And so I'm just so grateful to be able to talk about it. I'm just so grateful for people to potentially be able to hear about it. Like, yeah, I'm happy. I don't even know what I would want people to ask me about this thing other than just I'm just grateful anybody will ask me anything about it so we can talk about it. So yeah, it means a lot.
Cool. Well, thanks for spending some time with us. It's
Yeah,
been
of
fun following
course.
your career. I know,
Mhm.
is it okay if I say I was never a Caedmon's fan back in the day?
Absolutely.
I was best friends with a Caedmon fan, so like I
I'm
know
sorry
all
to
the
hear that.
stuff, and I've
Well,
come around. Like at this point, I'm like, oh yeah, this reminds me of my friend. My childhood drives, in the car back and forth between college and church, doing
yeah.
all this stuff, and he was the one that put me onto your first solo record way back in the day,
Okay. Okay. Well, I can be
and
grateful for that.
yeah, no, and I loved it, well, and honestly, I was also in like I wouldn't call it a band, but a musical group hosted by the college I went to that played multiple Caveman songs. I forget how many
Whoa.
we played, but we covered those. I'm sure the licensing was all in place, but
I'm sure it was.
as a
Um,
performer, that was part of our repertoire as well. But no, your voice has
nice.
been in my head for a long time, and I know you've
Mhm.
shared about how like the thing that you've said at concerts I've seen is or shows that you've
Mhm.
done is that you're not the person you were, but you'll cover his material. I
That's
love
right.
the way you've approached that because none of us, we've cycled all of ourselves. We are the ship of Theseus. We're not the people that that we used to be, either materially or like
Yes,
psychologically, spiritually,
that's right.
etc.
Right.
But I've appreciated following the through line. You've given voice to many different things, whether it's someone who's deciding, oh, maybe Calvinism isn't all it's cracked up to be, or or anything else.
Yeah.
Touring with Jennifer Knapp when she was coming back onto the market as a queer artist and
Yeah.
finding her footing. You took her on
Mhm.
tour. Saw that one in Portland, 2010, I
Oh
think.
wow. Yeah,
Really
yeah, yeah.
enjoyed
Goes
that.
right for
Yeah.
Stockholm syndrome. Yeah, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Crazy.
And then like the voice for people who we're a mix of people in this podcast. Most of us would still call ourselves Christian.
Yeah.
I'm our token ex-evangelical.
Nice.
But the Fingers Crossed record, gave voice to things that I had probably gone through 5, 6, 7 years earlier, but
Mm,
really hadn't had a chance to process. And so your time with those ideas and your own
mm,
personal journey and development through those things and experiences and the thoughts and positions, that was it was helpful for me
mm.
to hear someone work through those things artistically as well.
Yeah.
I think you've said, fingers crossed, it's a real bummer of a record. So just
It
don't
is. It's a
don't go in looking
heavy.
for an upper. Survival Songs is more of an upper than that one is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
But
what
yeah,
I've said about fingers crossed. I mean, just to make sure that in case anybody hears that and is curious, like I'm happy for anybody to listen to that record. I mean, it's a tale of two divorces. I mean, so it's a lot all at
Mm.
once. I mean, there's a lot going on that record, a lot of heavy processing. But please listen to it if you want. But if you do, just please listen to Targets immediately after, which is the
Mm.
record that
yeah,
followed it, which
yeah,
was kind of the I'm done grieving, it's time for some defiant joy kind of moment, So I think it like the two of those kind of if you take them together, I think they kind of balance each other out. So,
absolutely,
you know.
yeah.
Well, thank you for your kind words. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it is, man, it's been a lot. Like you've been very consistent, and I've noticed it over time. Like I'm always so grateful that we seem to go back a ways, and that you are willing to come with me. I mean, it's a lot to ask of people. I mean, especially with the zigs and zags that I have done over the years from a content standpoint, and just, I mean, you do this job long enough, and there's 100% chance that you're eventually going to disagree with all of your previous material, and it's going to make it
Mm.
really complicated when you have people who really deeply resonate with that stuff still. And I'm, as you've heard me say, but like I'm very grateful for all the songs that have caused resonance between me and anybody. So anybody if we find our way to each other, then the songs have done their job, and that's their highest value to me, is in the way that they connect us together. And at that point, it doesn't really matter how I feel about who I was when I wrote it, or do I still agree with whatever's not sung? Like, who cares? Like, that's so not important. I would love to sit with you and look at that snapshot of something from, where I stood at one time with the information I had, and documented it and described the world at that time. That's what it looked like. That's still true. That is what it looked like at that time to who I was in that moment.
Mm.
So I can still talk about that. That's no problem. It never presupposes that's where I am today. And if anything, you want your songwriters, you want your artists who you're listening to, you're giving your attention to be healthy, to be coming into new information, to be evolving and changing and growing, and learning and changing their minds sometimes, and being willing to disagree with themselves, and being willing to be called a hypocrite. Like, yeah, of course. Like, I'm an absolute contradiction. Like, I make no sense. If you come to one of my shows and I'm playing a mix of all the different material, oh, song to song, it's going to be whiplash. I mean, it's like the Venn
Mm.
diagram of who my music is for. If I'm mixing all of it together, is like so narrow at this point, you can barely even see through it, because it's like, yeah, I've been doing this for a while, and I've tried to be as honest as I could the whole way through. And my favorite people are complicated, insanely complicated. I'm complicated. And so I think that hopefully, if you squint your eyes at all the music over the years and you look at it, hopefully it welcomes you with all your complication. Bring all of it, it all belongs, bring all of it together, and maybe you'll find your way in somewhere in all these songs. But even I
Step
don't
back
agree
from the
with.
impressionist painting and see the landscape,
Yeah, and see if you see the boat or whatever it is with all the dots and whatever that was. But yeah,
the
but it's
ship
meant a
of
lot. It's
Theseus.
meant a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah, that's right. That's right. But thank you. So thank you for all your support. Thanks for always signal boosting and caring about the records. It's meant a lot. So
Well, hey, if somebody doesn't hold up the albums, how will people know when it's their anniversaries?
That's right.
Looking forward to getting my copy of Survival Songs on vinyl when it arrives. So,
and it is coming. It's a beautiful 180-gram cotton candy pink and white swirl
oh,
vinyl. They're
oh,
gorgeous.
nice,
Yeah. So.
Mm.
In
beautiful.
fact, in fact, this only because it's you, and only because I can
You
see
got
it. But like,
yeah,
well, no, actually, but what I do have is I have the
test
test pressing.
pressing. There we
Literally
go.
came. I've got the test pressing, which I need to listen to immediately so that they can finish the batch. But like,
Very good.
this is it. I need to
I
listen
love
to
it.
Wow.
it today, and give the thumbs up. But it's
That's
coming at you
fantastic.
soon. Yeah, yeah,
We
yeah.
doing what? 10,000, 20,000 copies?
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
First week, bro.
Oh yeah, first week. Yeah, you want to be prepared or whatever. But yeah, I'm so grateful that there are finally, and I know you are, Brock, I know you are too, but like, I'm so grateful that there are finally vinyl, like boutique vinyl manufacturers that
Yeah,
guys like me can make 100 or a few hundred pieces of vinyl and not lose your shirt completely because of the cost per unit. Like
absolutely.
it used to
Right.
be impossible for indie artists to produce vinyl. It just you couldn't do it. It made no sense
Right.
financially. You'd have to way overcharge and still lose money. And I'm
Unless you
super
were tooth
grateful.
and nail. Right. Yeah.
That's right. That's right, because they would do it on bulk with like so with all their artists. But like, so I'm very grateful that we can finally and I haven't, it's been 10 years since I've not produced vinyl next to a release.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah.
yeah, starting with fingers crossed, actually.
Right. Nerd question. Can I ask which plant is pressing it? Who is working with it?
So this time around, we're working with Copycats.
Okay.
Um, they've been amazing to work with. We have also tended over the years to work with Gold Rush in Austin.
Okay. Yeah. I've heard good things about them.
Karen Kelleher, who runs their outfit, she's an old friend and she's really, really great. And they've got a great shop there. There's a handful. You get to know these different mom and pops and the boutique vinyl presses but yeah, this is the first time we've worked with Copycats, and they've been amazing to work with. So I can't wait to see how they're really, really do amazing work with like color vinyl and with like custom vinyl. So we're pretty stoked about it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
Nice.
excited for it.
Yeah, dude.
So
Thank you.
on our show, sometimes we do like a timeout, which could or could not be included depending on what you like.
Sure.
But since I mentioned I have vinyl questions, the I see things upside down. I think I asked you about that like 10 years ago, and you're like, "No, it's never going to happen." And
What
that could
vinyl?
still be the answer. Yeah, exactly. But I've been doing a couple of lathe cuts for independent artists that own the rights to their music and that sort of thing. So I don't know if you own the because you were with INO, right? I forget
Yes,
who
I
owns this.
was.
So I know licensing is not
Well,
impossible, but it's a lot easier when you own your own stuff. So
the good thing is, yeah, so I have the only major label I was on for my first 10 years of solo work, was INO Records here in Nashville, which they were fantastic, very supportive
yeah.
of me, which was not easy in those years. And the great thing about the record deals there was that the masters all revert back to the artist after X amount of
Oh,
years,
Wow.
and so
there
I
you
actually
go.
own all my masters.
There we go.
So
Wow.
it's just a matter of for me coming up with the cash to be
Right.
able to press these things because the upfront cost is not nothing. And
Absolutely right. If you're pressing, if they're like cutting, if they're etching, whatever they're doing, like
Yep,
plates and whatnot, then yeah,
yep.
if you're doing pressed records, it gets expensive quick.
Yeah, and so you got to have a sense that you're going to be able to sell these things. And so, I've got I've got some quirky records in my discography and things that are like very high concept records that not a lot of people really got into and stuff. And
I'll just
so,
say I'd buy Control right now as
okay, well,
well
that's
if it
actually
was
of course that's the
available.
one that's in my mind. It's
Yeah.
like the one that I worked that it took me 2 years to make that record, and it was like I was so
Right.
obsessed about it, and it was such an ambitious creative project between that
Yeah.
and the Soul of Me EP that goes with it. And it just hit the market, of course, like a rock because nobody has the time for a concept album about the singularity,
Unless they
especially
also
like
have time for like a Twitter-based stem hunt, right? And
an ARG. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I am in
Which we,
Atlanta. I am in
we,
Portland. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Which we really did more on Stockholm Syndrome. That was kind of the where we learned that particular skill. But like, it's like I would love to press a record like that on vinyl. I'm just afraid that like I would sell like maybe 12 or 13 of them. Like
Right. Right. Right.
I mean who knows? I mean
Yeah.
I've got patrons who tell me that that they would all grab one and it would all be worth it and I got to do it, but I'm
But
just
show me the
saying,
money, right? Like who's
yeah, a little
actually going to
bit like
pony up for it? Turns out it's a special edition at $120.
yeah, or like that, like that one Wu-Tang record that somebody bought for one
Oh
million
yeah.
dollars or whatever.
Where only
But
one exists. Yeah.
I'm yeah, one of one. But like I feel like I would Like the first vinyl I think I ever pressed was for Mockingbird, and it was on its 10-year anniversary,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that was a Kickstarter, and which I'd never done before. I've never done since, other than the Caveman's Kickstarter. I'd never, for my own career, it's the only ever time, because I was like, this is a ton of money to lay out to make a bunch of vinyl, and I don't know that anybody wants this. I don't know that, and I at that time I had not ever tested like if my particular people were even interested in vinyl, because it
Right.
really depends on who your audience is. And sometimes like your audience just doesn't care about that particular thing. And so you really don't need to waste your money producing it. And so I was like, I need you to tell me and show me that you do want this. And if enough of you do, that it can make sense financially, I'd love to do it.
Totally.
And that campaign like way overfunded. And so that was really exciting. I got to finally press vinyl, which we did for Mockingbird. And I've been out of those for a long, 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 long time. I don't have
I've
any
got
left.
one of those too.
You do? Oh my God. Well,
Yeah, yeah.
like
Yep.
there's, I didn't make a ton of them, and I've been out for a long time. But so to answer your question though, generally, management and I have been talking for a long time about how to eventually produce some vinyl across the whole discography, like
Yeah, yeah,
so
cool.
wherever the gaps are, to figure out a way to see if we can afford to. And honestly, maybe it would be a thing where we do a Kickstarter for like for like vinyl discography package, like where you get
Sure.
literally like you get a
Package
vinyl for
deal.
every album
A box
kind of
set.
thing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like like a box set kind of deal, you know. And there might be a way to do it, and we're always looking at it, and I would love
Yeah.
to do it.
So
Um,
here's my short pitch. It's just that
oh,
I've worked with
great,
a couple indie artists who I love, who I'm like, I'd love to have them on my record shelf. Like I like what they do.
absolutely,
Found this lathe cutter here in Portland, Oregon that does excellent work. It's the best. Like lathe, I think the consensus on a lot of lathe cut vinyl is that it sounds like shit, and so
ah,
it's important to acknowledge that that's kind of the baseline. But these
mm,
folks, I've done several projects with them, and their audio quality is amazing. So what I've been doing is just like, hey, sometimes it's just, hey, I want this. You know, it's like, hey, you guy I knew from college, you made a great record. It's not even out there, and I'd love to hear it. I'd love to have it on vinyl. So made two.
wow,
But those get pricey. If you do them at quantity, you find people that are interested. It gets a little more affordable. So if it's something that
yeah.
you want to do, I could work with you a bit more on it. Have zero pressure because you've got options, you got people. You're a professional and you work with professionals. But if it's something that helps you get to where you want to get to, I'd be happy to chat with you a bit more on that.
Dude, I also run a lemonade stand. I mean, basically is what I do in my career. So it's like,
Right.
no, I would love it. I would love to. We should connect
Yeah,
separately and just talk about what's possible.
for
Because I mean,
sure.
I would love to do it. I would love to be able to offer it. And I
Yeah,
do think that there's like, I mean, I just, you can't ever, in my line of work, you can't really ever have delusions of grandeur about, and like, or else you work yourself right out of the job, because I mean, like one wrong move when you're
Yeah.
indie, like down at this
right.
level, like one
Right.
wrong move and you're done. You're done. You got to be real careful,
That's my mortgage. Yeah. So
not to get over ambitious. It's
don't
really
want to do
true. So
that.
I got to be smart. But I would love to talk about it. So
Sweet. Yep.
let's connect about it. That sounds awesome.
Cool deal. I'll shoot you an email or something. We'll figure it out.
Please do. Please
And
do.
that's my time in to say
Dope.
we can cut whatever you want about that.
Rad. No, I mean, whatever. It's whatever you and yours are interested in, man. You leave every
Okay.
bit of that in there.
Well, thank you. Very good.
Can I ask a selfish question?
Yeah, of
That maybe
course.
not be for everybody. They know I'm a huge Rich Mullins fan.
Mm.
I did see your house show in Raleigh last year when you were doing
Oh
your old
yeah, yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
including that segment. And we
Nice.
briefly talked. But I'm just
Yeah.
curious if there's anything you want to talk about from the Bellsburg recording of that whole project and your
Oh
experience in that,
yeah.
because I love it. But
Yeah, 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 yeah. That was an amazing experience. And they did all that out at this house that Rich had owned at
right.
one point and gave to a friend. And I loved how they did it. I loved that they recorded everything to tape, so it was all live performances, and they filmed all of it too. And all those old bear guys were like around. And right, that's the name of that label, right? Old Bear. Is
Hmm.
that the name of the?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they're great. They do such cool work. I love what they work. I love their choices they make, and those dudes are pretty cool. There's some very extremely talented musicians in that bunch, and
Hmm.
um, but yeah, it was a great experience. I mean, just kind of showed up and felt like I was walking into a whole experience. It was kind of already happening, and recorded that one song. I had just been working on and working up some rich songs for an EP that I did a few years
Yeah,
ago.
those four songs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was cool. And I don't know if they ever what they ever did or if they're ever going to do anything with some of. I mean, I know that there's probably a Scorsese length documentary possible from all of what they
Okay.
filmed, because were filming all the recordings, and we filmed like another hour of conversation right after I recorded my song. And
Oh
I
wow.
definitely told a couple stories I've never told, some Rich Mullins stories that I thought they might appreciate. And so like it was really amazing, and I loved to get to be a part of it. But I hope that they wrangle all that film into
Yeah.
something, because but especially considering who all they had out there,
Right.
and if they were doing with everybody what they did with me, there's going to be a ton of good stories and stuff, and I would love to see it.
I saw online, I don't even remember where, it's been a little bit now, but that there was some follow-up coming of the Belford
Cool.
project, but I don't know any details.
Well, I
Like
love
that's
that they
all it
did
was.
it.
It
I mean,
was like a vague,
yeah,
yeah. And if you do want to tell
yeah.
us any timeout Rich Mullins stories, those are fair game as
Oh yeah, for
well.
sure.
I mean, dude, there are so many funny
Yeah.
and weird stories with a guy like Rich. I mean,
Right?
he just had so many great quirks that most people just wouldn't have known or didn't know about. I mean, almost everything about Rich Mullins. It's like if you knew him or if you were around him for very long, you would immediately get a quick sense of like, okay, wow, this is not the dude who you would think wrote Awesome God and is playing for
Mhm.
3,000 people in the big Baptist church this weekend. Like he was
Right.
just such a crusty and quirky dude, and just like I mean he was amazing. He was amazing. But like I mean he was definitely known, for instance, like if you were in the studio with him recording and stuff, he was definitely known to streak through rooms, and like he loved to be out of his clothes. Like so he would definitely show up like listening to a mix, and he'd start commenting, you turn around and he'd just be standing there in nothing. Like I mean he was not afraid to be
That's funny.
liberated
Right?
of his clothing at any time. But like, and like, I mean, I just remember like the after we had hooked up with him and connected with him, and he'd come to Houston and been in the video that our band had made for his song "Hope to Carry On," and we got to spend
Hmm.
some time with him there, and then we were going up to Cornerstone Festival to play, and it was the end of a long year of touring, and we couldn't afford to get the whole. Although we had agreed to do the gig, we couldn't afford to fly the whole band there actually, because we were starving. I mean, we weren't signed yet, I don't think. Maybe we were, but maybe we were actually. Maybe we had just signed our deal, but like, I mean, there were seven of us in that band, so there's no way you
Yeah.
can make any money at it. But anyways, so just Garrett, our percussionist, and I went to Cornerstone, and we were headlining this side stage, and so we went there, and just the two of us were going to kind of like be Caedmon's Call, but not enough people probably really knew. I mean, we were still pretty new on the scene, so I don't think there would have been that many people who would have been like, "Oh, you mean these two dudes aren't Caedmon's Call? Like, we don't know
Right.
what Caedmon's Call is." So we went up there to do the gig, and we realized when we got there that the whole day, every artist on that stage were all basically like friends of Rich's. It was like Rick Elias was playing, and
Okay.
This Train, who were like a really dope
Oh
rockabilly
Hmm.
wow,
band, were
yeah,
Yeah.
playing,
I remember them.
and
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, and Mitch McVicker was playing, and
Hmm.
like it was like everybody on that stage all day were like Rich's crew, and then we were headlining, and so those dudes, everybody was like around, and therefore Rich was around, and that's where he was hanging out all day. But like as soon as we got out of like the minivan that got us from the airport, Rich was like right there. He like came over and he was like, what do you guys doing? Come on, let's go. And I mean, this is how he was. Like he was like this hurricane. Like it didn't matter what else was happening in the world. You just got whipped up in it, and he would have some crazy mission he was on. And so he was like, "Come on, we're like, are you guys hungry?" We're like, "Bro, we're like like we're exhausted and we're sleepy, and it's really bright here, and I don't know. I think we have to like set something up." He was like, "No, come on. We heard that they have ostrich burgers." He's like, "So I'm trying to I'm on this mission to find an ostrich burger. Come on, we're all finding ostrich burgers." And I was like, "Okay." So he was like, it was like me and him, it was like us and him and Mitch and maybe I forget who else, one of the dudes in one of the bands, but And so we were, and one of the new ragamuffins and all these amazing like dudes wearing like kilts and broom skirts, and
Right.
we were, I mean, we were, and so with dreads and whatever. And so we were like, we raced out of the artist area and raced out into the like the whole food truck area, and everybody was like, yeah, like as he was like rushing, we were rushing through, and everybody was like, is that Rich Mull, and he was like, I'll talk to you later, we're trying to find an ostrich burger. And like it was so funny. Like he would just get so obsessed on a thing. And we found our way to the ostrich burgers.
Yeah.
And then he was like, oh, now we got to get over here because I think they were doing Canticle of the Plains, which was his big
Yeah.
musical, his big avant-garde
Hmm.
kind of musical. They were performing it on the main stage that year. So they had to get it from there. Like that made him super late to do like a rehearsal for that. So then we had to rush him back over to the main stage, and we were kind of hanging out for that. And then he was like, "Oh, you guys need to stay. Like, we'll give you parts in the musical. Like, can you stay? Like, I know you're doing your
Yeah.
set. But can you stay through tomorrow? We're gonna do the thing." And I wish we had of, but we couldn't. I mean, I'm
Right.
sure we could have, but we should have. But he was nuts, and you just had to run around behind him. I mean, he was extremely present always. I mean, he was absolutely in the moment he was in
Okay.
at all times. Like he was to the detriment of like all of his concerts and any kind of organization anybody's trying to keep him, like any schedule anyone's trying to impose on him. I mean, he didn't even know about it. He was like trying to find his ostrich burger, or he was like just off doing a thing. I mean,
Yeah.
he was very, very present, and it was awesome, and it was very inspiring. And it's like you would see him and you'd wonder what in the world must it feel like to be that dude, because he just
Right.
seemed like he had no plans all the time. And yet his life was like had to be very structured. Like the label would need him to come off the reservation where he was living those last few years of his life,
Hmm.
teaching music to little Native American Indian kids who did not know who he was. He just like showed up and started living there in his tent on the reservation one day, and he was like, they just thought he was like this unhoused person who just came to live there, who would disappear for months at a time, no idea where was he going. That's because he was going out on world tours,
Right.
and then he would come back and be back on the reservation. It's like, oh, Wayne is back to teach us music lessons or whatever. And so yeah, he
I
was
love that so
fascinating,
much.
dude.
Hmm.
Yeah, he's amazing. He's incredible.
Also, got to say, like I quit smoking in 2018. I think just for health reasons, but like I've always trusted almost implicitly if you smoke and you're involved in like evangelical Christian music circles, like you're implicitly more trustworthy than anybody
Yeah.
else
Well, then
in
then
those
Rich would have
circles.
been the most trustworthy person that you'd ever met, because
Right.
like he was notorious for getting kicked off of, like, for instance, Southern Baptist church campuses where he was doing big concerts, because he would respectfully get out away, get out in the parking lots and get like away from the buildings to smoke.
Yeah.
And the church security would see him and think he was a homeless guy, and they would kick him off campus and they wouldn't let him
Sorry,
come
sir, you
back
can't
on.
come in here. Yeah.
And then he
Right.
wouldn't be able to get back to his shows. I mean, it was like a fight for him to find his way back into the sanctuary. So yeah, he was fascinating. It was great.
That's incredible. Appreciate it. You indulging me. And Kevin, Pete,
Yeah.
Brian.
Oh, dude, of course. I mean, yeah, a pleasure.
Awesome.
Sweet. Well, I'm gonna have to log off to go back to my day
Same.
job to Zoom with somebody
Yeah,
else
yeah, yeah.
for employment. So
Oh God.
unfortunately, that's the
Yeah.
situation. But
Well, dude, thanks so much for
pleasure.
having me. Yeah, it was great, great, great to see you guys. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Really appreciate the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
pleasure. All day to hang with you guys.
Thank you for your time and your record and all of your art. That's good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Yeah,
it so
super
much.
appreciate it. Yeah, awesome to talk to you guys.
Definitely more than welcome to come back and tell
Yeah,
more
it's
stories
true.
anytime.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm into it. I would love to. Let's do it again. Let's do it again.
Awesome.
We didn't even ask you about Five Iron Frenzy Insiders. We usually need to ask everyone their opinion about those people. So next
The one
time.
thing I know you got to go. The one thing about Five Iron that is the story that I always get told is how whenever they would pull up to festivals, and like they'd have a hassle at the gate trying to get in to get to their, they would just tell everybody that they were Caedmon's Call, and then
Right.
people would let
That's
them in.
right.
Yes.
That's
Yep.
right.
Because it was like
Yeah.
a bunch of dudes and a girl, and so
Yeah.
they were in a van or whatever. So they would like, oh, we're Caedmon's Call, it's fine. They're like, oh, we got here's Caedmon's Call, and they would, and like we just always thought that was super hysterical. That
The
like, we're
easiest
like,
costume to wear. Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
exactly,
Yep.
exactly. Like the one other band that could pass. Anyways. All right, well, it's great to see you
Awesome.
guys. We'll talk to you hopefully soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Cheers. Take care.
And that's the news from Lake Skabegon, where all the nylon strings are dull, all the rich Mullins find their ostrich burgers, and all the people, no matter how they identify, are openly welcomed.
Growing up, she heard about the end times, but they never felt so close. Showing love can make you a criminal and wearing your own clothes. She got up, went to school as if it wasn't burning down. She looked at her friend, said with a smirk, I guess we're illegal now. And what was it about her heart that scared those men so much? Queer kid, where you gonna live now? Good kid, always getting kicked out of every place. You're not safe to be just who you are. Coming up, she knew about the balance, that it was hard to get it right. A kind defense or a patient fist and safety in the fight. But overnight the whole world was changing, just like a tape stuck in reverse. But if you have a good heart and a little mascara, you can push back on the